everybody. I'm Alyssa from Meditative Astrology, and I'm here to discuss with you the astrology of March 30th through April 5th. We have not a huge number of aspects, just a couple of them, but we have a very big sign change that has been talked about a lot recently. So we're going to get into all of that. Before we do, remember to like, follow, and subscribe so that way you don't miss any of our videos, as well as making sure you see our live meditations that we have every Sunday night. Those are streamed to both YouTube and to Facebook, and it's another great way to prepare for the week astrologically. So as we start out this week on Sunday, March 30th, we have the moon in the sign of Aries to start. The moon will move into the sign of Taurus in the afternoon, just after 3 p.m. Eastern time. And we have a couple lunar aspects that are going on that day. Mercury moved into the sign of Pisces yesterday, still sitting at 29 degrees. So the things that we talked about at the end of last week's video are still applying here at the beginning of this week. So if you missed that video, go back and check out what we said about Mercury and Neptune and Mercury moving into the sign of Pisces to get a little bit more for this week. Else on Sunday, we have Neptune moving into the sign of Aries. Big sign change going on here. Neptune spends about 14 years in each sign that it's in. So we've had Neptune in the sign of Pisces since about 2011. That's a long time for Neptune in the sign of Pisces. 14 years, think about all of the young people who have never experienced anything other than Neptune in the sign of Pisces. With Neptune moving so slow, we only have a certain number of signs that Neptune moves through within our entire life. If we live to be into our mid-80s, then maybe we will see Neptune move through about 6 signs or 6 houses, and then it'll vary from there depending on the length of our life. So there's only a certain part of our chart that these outer planets move through, and Neptune being one of the slowest planets, it moves very, very slowly here. So Neptune being a planet that connects us deeply with things, it's a very thoughtful planet, it inspires us, it connects us or disconnects us from things. Sometimes that disconnection comes from connecting so deeply with one thing that you are putting your total focus on it, and then you're taking your focus away from other things. So that's where that connection, disconnection thing comes in. The hope is always that Neptune is connecting us to things that are serving our highest good and will benefit us in the long run, rather than something that will be a little bit more difficult for us in the future. So when Neptune moves into the sign of Aries, into the first sign of the zodiac, the fire sign, the cardinal sign of Mars, there is very strong moving energy in the sign of Aries. Energy to initiate, energy to start, energy to fight for, energy to move forward. We've talked a lot about Aries recently. Neptune relates to our beliefs, what we think, what we are inspired, where we find our connections. Through all those things, we find our beliefs that we have in our belief systems. So there is this desire to fight for beliefs, fight on behalf of freedom. Aries is a sign of individuality, so there's this way that it wants to step out and not be confined within any sort of molds. So we may be looking to fight for our freedoms, being able to move forward, and it's very passionate, very driven, and very motivated. What is Neptune motivated by? It's motivated by its deep connections. It's motivated by what inspires it. It's motivated by being able to reach deeply into whatever zodiac sign that it's in. So Neptune in the sign of Aries is going to be reaching into that individuation energy. It's going to be moving into that initiating, that jump starting, that quick to react energy. Very, very different from the Piscean energy that we've had since 2011. With Neptune in the sign of Aries, I'm thinking about sacrifice. I'm thinking about martyrs. I'm thinking about energies that are willing to fight fully for whatever it is that we're fighting for. And within that, there is that inspiration to react and to create things. There is a very there is a way in which we want to feel very inspired, to feel confident in the flow when Neptune is in the sign of Aries. So it could be that things are flowing very well and that we feel strong, we feel confident, we feel capable. If that spirals a little bit too far and becomes almost oversaturated by those same themes, then the fog may kind of start to roll in. And that leaves us in a place of, could potentially leave us in a place of moving without thinking beforehand. So Neptune is a planet that can very quickly envelop you within something. So if Neptune in the sign of Pisces has been pushing us deeply into emotional connections, into our beliefs, into intuitive connections, Neptune in the sign of Aries is going to push us deeply into that individuation. It's going to push us into moving towards our own beliefs and wanting to fight for them, willing to sacrifice for not only the Aries qualities, but also for whatever the house topics are where Aries falls within your own life. So if we have this strong desire to move, to motivate, to individuate, it can be this energy of just really creating and starting something that has some longevity. Again, we're going to have about 14 years of Neptune in the sign of Aries, so we can really, we have some space to really create things over the next couple decades here. But if that tips into excess, then we may become a little bit, a little power hungry, or there could be a little bit of a self focus where we're just focusing on the individual rather than the collective energy. And sometimes that's needed. Sometimes we need to be able to really just focus in and dial in on ourselves. But sometimes if we're too focused on one specific individual energy, then there is that possibility that we become a little too focused on it, too hyper-focused, and there could be a little bit of a selfish energy that comes through there. We have a very long time to get used to Neptune in the sign of Aries. It takes like 164 years for Neptune to make its way around the zodiac. So nobody that is alive today has seen Neptune in the sign of Aries. And we will not see Neptune back in the sign of Pisces. We mentioned this before a few weeks ago, but we will not see Neptune in the sign of Pisces again for our lifetime. The last time that Neptune was in the sign of Aries, we had the Civil War here in the United States. So I think that points a picture of the level of feeling inspired to fight for our beliefs, fight for what we believe in, and what we truly individually within our own self think and believe to be right, true, the way to go, the trail to blaze. So that paints a little bit of a picture of where that energy can just kind of keep rolling and keep moving. So starting out this week with a bang with Neptune moving into the sign of Aries, just after coming into that conjunction with Mercury at 29 degrees of Pisces. That Taurus move that we have Sunday is going to take us right into Monday, March 31st, the last day of March. The moon will be in the sign of Taurus all day on Monday, and we don't have any aspects going on. Like I said, there's not a whole lot of aspects, but Neptune moving into Aries is a big thing. So that Taurus moon is going to take us right into Tuesday, April 1st. The moon will move into the sign of Gemini in the afternoon, about 3:30 p.m. Eastern time. We have a couple other aspects that are happening on this day. That Gemini moon that sees us through Tuesday is going to bring us right into Wednesday, where it will be in the sign of Gemini all day. It'll make its conjunction to Jupiter in the evening around 6:30 p.m. Eastern time, and we have a couple Mars aspects happening this day as well. Mars is going to make a sextile to Uranus as well as a trine to Saturn. These aspects are interesting because they are all interacting together. They are all sitting right at 24 degrees of their sign. You have Saturn at 24 Pisces, you have Uranus at 24 Taurus, and you have Mars at 24 Cancer. So these aspects are happening simultaneously. Mars coming into contact with both of these planets at the same time, as well as both Saturn, all three of them are interacting together. But it's a little dynamic when you have all three of these planets interacting at the same time. So when you have Mars making a sextile to Uranus, the individual sextiles themselves are not always the loudest. However, with the way that these planets are interacting together, it feels like it makes it a little bit louder. So Mars is coming into a sextile with Uranus and reaching into some tangible, changeable energy with Uranus being in the sign of Taurus. You may be able to feel it physically as well as emotionally. Mars is in the sign of Cancer, a water sign. And as Mars makes this sextile to Uranus from this emotional place, it can find bravery to bring its emotions into the physical sphere. It can stand out on its own, or it can stand alone. Both Mars and Uranus are planets that are willing to go their own way, and they both have a level of willingness to shift, change, motivate, do something a little bit different. So Mars is a planet that likes to move, likes to shift, doesn't want to necessarily stay in one spot. Uranus likes to break outside of the mold. It likes to be eccentric, it likes to be innovative, and it wants to do something a little bit different. So I see where we could be moving in a little bit different direction. Meanwhile, Saturn is making that trine to Saturn. So we have this thoughtful action that comes through as there's this ability to shift, individuate, and move a little bit different. Saturn doesn't necessarily rush into things, but like we said, Mars likes to move forward. So there is thoughtful, precise, and almost premeditated action. So it's thinking things through and then acting. Mars, like I said, Mars likes to shift, but Saturn wants things to be done in the way that they're supposed to be, done in the orderly way, right? So we can have foundational breakthroughs that are deeply seated, but they are deliberate at the same time. We are focused, we are shifting, and we are melding these energies together in a way that really can bring some foundational framework changes into our lives. I'm wondering about the ability to not only start and initiate, but also to be able to follow through with the trine between Mars and Saturn, with Mars wanting to move, being maybe a little bit emotionally charged. It will initiate, Cancer, where Mars is a cardinal sign, so it is a sign that initiates, but it initiates from that emotional sphere, from what feels right, what feels like the energy we should be moving into. Saturn in Pisces is very reflective. It's very slow to move because it wants to take in all the different parts. With these aspects happen simultaneously across water and earth signs, there is this emotional, connective, intuitive, changeable energy within here, but there's also this physical, sensual, and solid energy. So really, it's bringing many, many different aspects together. So with all of this different energy coming together, I am wondering how we feel about the energy that we are in and what we're going to do about it. Do you feel like you're moving in the right direction, or do you feel like there needs to be a little bit of a shift? If it feels like you're moving in the right direction and the systems and the frameworks are working properly, then that's even further motivating to keep moving, drive forward, and keep going in the direction that we are. If it feels like the way we've been going isn't necessarily panning out the way that we expected it to, then maybe we are able to look at the process a little bit more deliberately and a little bit more seriously to initiate new frameworks or expand on the frameworks that have been, to shift them a little bit here. So very, very interesting to see how those energies are going to interlink together in the middle of the week here. So that's what we have coming through Wednesday. That Gemini moon that we have Wednesday is going to take us right into Thursday, April 3rd. The moon will start out in the sign of Gemini before moving into the sign of Cancer in the evening, just before 6 p.m. Eastern time. And that Cancer moon is going to take us right into Friday and take us into the first quarter moon as well. So following the moon through the sign of Cancer all day Friday and finding ourselves in that space of initiating, breaking through, and whatever was started and seeded within the new moon, which also happened to be a solar eclipse in the sign of Aries, is initiating here and starting to show itself coming through the end of this week. That Cancer moon is going to see us right through into Saturday, April 5th, where it will stay until it moves into the sign of Leo just before midnight, right around 11:30 p.m. Eastern time. So, like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, we don't have a huge number of aspects. However, there is dynamic energy that we have coming through here this week. As Neptune moves into the sign of Aries and we start to feel that sometimes the very first few days of Neptune moving in, or of any planet moving into a new sign, especially these outer planets, that we spend so much time in one sign and then we move to another that it can really feel like quite a stark difference of energy. So just see what you notice shifting this week. See where you can get a little bit of a picture or idea of where Neptune is going to show up for you in the sign of Aries. Also consider the house topics of what house Aries is within your own chart, and then think about the things that Neptune brings. Think about that inspiration and that deep connection and where you can see a pathway for that. This is a really good space to contemplate on this week, since we're going to have so much time spent within this energy. And like I said at the outset, it can be very strong, powerful, and even visible. So you can start to kind of gauge where you might start to see that show up here. And then after you've contemplated on all of this, you can join us Sunday night for our live meditation, 8:30 p.m. Streamed to YouTube and Facebook. So that's another way to prep for the week along with this astrological outlook. You can, if you missed the live session, there's always replays on YouTube, so feel free to go back and check that out. So I hope you have a wonderful week, and I hope that the energy of this week serves you in the most highest possible way that it can. I will see you all next week, and I hope you have a wonderful week.